Today's the day. Fallout 4 is finally here. Except I'm about 9 years late to the party. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite game of all time. I was anxiously waiting on the edge of my seat for the release of the sequel, and then I just never got it. I didn't have a PC. I was too broke to move away from my old trusty Xbox 360, so I just skipped it. In this time, I've had a chance to hear pretty much every single opinion under the sun about this game before finally being able to pick it up. The one thing that did stick with me and ultimately made me a lot less inclined to play it was from one of my friends, Steven, who said, if you could somehow get over the fact that this is a Fallout game, that it's supposed to be a Fallout game, you might really enjoy it. Which, on one hand, this gives me hope. Everybody else I talked to could not stand the game whatsoever. On the other hand, the whole Fallout vibe is why I loved Fallout New Vegas so much, and Fallout 3 as well. And it's not just my friends that think this way. Before I give you my full review of Fallout 4, let's take a quick Google search and check the pulse of the internet on how Fallout 4 was received. If we look at a lot of the reviews that are from actual companies that is paying a person real life money in order to review the game, most if not all of these reviews are overwhelmingly positive. I'm gonna be transparent with you guys. I'm not like super well versed in like gaming reviews or anything like that. I honestly don't pay attention to them myself, despite currently making one. I'm wondering if the people who are like part of these companies that get paid by a company to review them, maybe they have relationships with the game developers, maybe they want to maintain that. Maybe they want to like get early access to certain games or just access in general to the people who make the games. So because of that, and I'm putting on my tinfoil hat here, that might incentivize somebody to have a more positive review than if there weren't those pressures behind them. Once again, no evidence, just a theory. If we then look at the score on Google, where just anybody can submit a review anonymously, it's super divisive. A lot of people hated this game, a lot of people love this game, and this rating honestly sums up pretty much how I feel about the game. I think I would personally rate it more than like a 62%. The parts of the game that they did really well, they did really well, but there's a lot that they didn't. And before I move on to the why behind the what, I wanted to take a quick peek at some of the other games I've played through recently, and as you can see, a 62% for Fallout 4 is like unnaturally bad. Now, the reason for this is something we could go back and forth all day long, and I'm sure a few of you are gonna do that down in the comment section below, but I personally believe that people are more dissatisfied with something not when it's bad, but when it misses their expectations. Here's a quick example. If you went to a really fancy restaurant, great reviews, all of your friends recommended it, you pay a ton of money, but the food's just fine. It's not bad, it's okay, but it doesn't really blow your mind. I feel that's a much worse experience than going out to get a cheap lunch somewhere and having it just be an okay cheap lunch. I'm sure that fancy meal was actually better than that cheap lunch, but your expectations were so much higher for that fancy meal that you were way less satisfied with it. I think the problem that Fallout 4 had with its public reception is that the bar was set really, really high. Fallout New Vegas was a masterpiece, an absolutely magical experience. You had such an immersive world, it was goofy, every inch of the game screamed Fallout, and your choices had a very real impact on the outcome of every scenario. You could really get sucked into the game in a way that Fallout 4 really wasn't able to replicate. Oh ho ho, another Fallout New Vegas guy hating on Fallout 4. And honestly guys, I didn't know that that was a trope until I was doing research for this video and going through all the Reddit threads about like different opinions and why and all of that. I'm not that guy. I do love Fallout New Vegas, but I do also really like Fallout 4. And in this next section, I do want to get into the whys, what I thought they did poorly, what they did really well, and how they could fix the things that they did poorly, because I think they were like almost there on a few of them. It is just like kind of a swing and a miss. And with that being said, I do want to start off with the things that I think they could improve on, and then we'll end things off on a high note. One of the coolest parts about Fallout and other well-made role-playing games is that you actually have a role to play. Your actions, your conversations, your speech, charisma checks, they truly matter. They impact your reputation, they provide other possible outcomes, and they can even fail the current quest that you're on. In Fallout 4, it really feels like it does not matter what I say to an NPC. It feels like when I have a conversation that all 4 roads lead to the same outcome. I'm perfectly fine with not getting an option that fails a main quest or turns something against me where it's going to become an uncompletable game, but why bother giving us a bunch of fake options to choose from when having a conversation with an NPC? Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've tried to have different outcomes happen within a conversation in here just by choosing the different options. Ultimately, they might act slightly offended, but when you get further into the conversation, it's always the same exact outcome. This takes away heavily from the Fallout vibe and sterilizes the gameplay.
I said no.
And I'm saying yes. So there.
Another thing that kind of takes away from the whole role-playing and Fallout vibe is having a voice protagonist. This one really tilted a lot of people, but for me it's kind of secondary after having not any choice at all.
At the Veterans Hall tonight, hun.
You think?
Absolutely. Now get ready and stop hogging the mirror.
Right.
And it's not that I don't like the voice they chose. That guy's a way better voice actor than I am. When I'm playing a Fallout game, I prefer to play a role, even if there's some type of scripted dialogue with the NPCs, and they all are. I would prefer to not have a voice attached. This, coupled with all the speech choices leading to the same outcome, really take away from the whole role-playing vibe and concept. Once again, this would totally be fine for a linear looter-shooter type of game, but it's kind of a swing and a miss for a Fallout title. Okay, last time I'm going to break the fourth wall in this video, but thank you guys so much for watching. This is my first video on this channel. Hopefully I am entertaining you. If I am, please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are interested in similar content. I'm going to be mostly doing game reviews and other video game related news and content as well. So thank you so much, and back to the video. I think I'm the only person I've ever talked to who is actually excited about the settlements aspect of Fallout 4. I don't even want to show you how many hours I've spent in other survival games like The Forest or Rafts just dicking around with their clunky ass building mechanics. I am all about this. For Fallout, I think this could be a really exciting part of future games. I just personally don't really like how it was executed in Fallout 4. My first issue is that there's just way too many of them. There's way too many settlements, they all have requirements, they all expect me to maintain them, they send you a notification if they're under attack and stuff like that. Listen, I would love to do the settlements, I'd love to build the stuff in them, but I'm trying to explore the wastelands. I'm not trying to turn settlement maintenance into a full-time job. I'm also not really a big fan of the building UI. It makes it really hard for me to position things correctly and all of that. That might be because I played this on a controller versus like a keyboard and mouse, so maybe you keyboard and mouse people might have a different experience with this, but I have a really hard time figuring out where to put certain things, how to like do all of that. It'd be awesome if they had like a snap to wall, or for a house, like a snap to foundation type of thing. I'm not 100% sure on that one. Like, that would take away a little bit of the freedom, just having like designated spaces and everything, but it would make it a lot more brain dead for people like me to be able to build the things that they want to build. So after playing around with it, I actually kind of like this a lot more than when I started recording, but the three main things that I think they could improve on for Fallout 5 are overall just less settlements to deal with, and don't make me deal with them, just don't make me maintain them. I guess just an easier UI to work with in general. For this section, I want to talk about the different weapon types in Fallout 4, and for this, I'm going to boil it down into three different categories for us to talk about. The first is just the standard weapons in the game. The second are the uniques, meaning it has a unique name, a unique skin, it looks different than the other ones, and it has a unique effect. And then the third is going to be the legendary system. So for this first one, I wanted to discuss just your standard gun. Like, you kill a raider, he had a gun, and you pick it up. In Fallout 4, you get like all these different things where it's just like an adjective shotgun, right? So like this is just a combat shotgun, but you know, it's a marksman's hardened shotgun, or we have the muzzled advanced 10mm pistol. Fallout New Vegas had so many different unique types of guns in it. There's a few different modifications, like 1 to 3 per gun, but you really could change up your playstyle based off of your ammunition type. Fallout 4 took the opposite approach. Let's take a look at the assault rifle. Everybody loves this monstrosity, right? It being ugly as hell aside, look at how many different modifications you can make to it. This is absolutely overwhelming to a person like me. I hate it. That being said, I can totally see why somebody would love this. I saw a ton of comments online about people who just love min-maxing every little piece of their Fallout shooting experience. I'm just not one of them. I'm too casual for that personally, so I didn't like that. And because of this, all the guns that you get are these random number generated guns with, you know, like the different modifications on them. It ends up being really dull. Next, I wanted to talk about the unique weapons. Usually they have a unique name, a unique look to them, and maybe even a unique model. No complaints from me on this. I think Fallout 4 did a really good job. There's several that I've found so far in game, and I think they're really cool. The only way that I think they could have improved these is by scrapping the legendary system. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that most of you who are watching this have played Fallout 4 before, but if you haven't, let me explain the legendary system really quick. In random encounters in the game, sometimes there will be a chance that an enemy will be a legendary. This is designated with a star next to their name, They're usually a little bit stronger than a normal monster, but they're not quite as strong as an actual boss monster. The mid-fight, they will heal themselves by mutating, and then when defeated, these monsters will drop one legendary piece of gear. It's just a normal piece of gear, but with some goofy-ass magic effect on it. One word: lame as hell. This is just the same RNG adjective pipe gun thing all over again, but this time you can RNG yourself either a god tier weapon right off the bat, or 99.9% of the time you get some absolute garbage like leg piece or something like that. And like literally anything can be legendary. Look at this legendary deer that I found in the woods. This feels super lazy on the developer's part, which is really weird because I kind of enjoyed this type of thing when they did it in Borderlands, which I guess kind of sums up how I feel about this. I don't really like the RNG enemy aspect, and there's so much of that in Fallout 4. I understand from a developing standpoint that that's probably like a really easy way to populate your game, but it just doesn't feel Fallout to me. Whereas like something like a looter shooter, like Borderlands or something else along those lines, it kind of just feels right in that type of world. Anyways, I don't even know how you would fix it, and I don't think they really should. I think they should just scrap the legendary concept entirely for Fallout 5 or Fallout 4.5 or whatever's next. Fallout 4 has an immense amount of content. The only problem is just so much of it is so boring. That being said, there are some amazing pieces of content in it as well, but that is for the good things about Fallout 4 section in the second half of the video. The Minutemen are a faction within Fallout 4 that you're basically building up from scratch. It's a network of different settlements that are all aligned to build some sort of society by helping each other. Normally, this is something that I really align with, and I wanted so bad to align with them in Fallout 4. It's just that they're so unbelievably boring. Preston Garvey seemingly never runs out of new settlements that need my help. The entirety of his quests are as follows. Preston tells you that there is a settlement that needs your help. You go there on your boring ass quest, clear out some boring ass ghouls, raiders, or mutants, get your boring ass loot from a location with no lore whatsoever, and rinse and repeat. I think what would help me get into more of these settlement type of quests is if there was any type of actual storytelling going along with it. I don't need to clear out raiders, I don't need to clear out super mutants, I don't really care that your son got stolen. More on that one later. Honestly, just throw a terminal with like some interesting emails on it. That would be enough for me. And it's honestly not just this goober, it just seems like there's a ton of quests that are really lacking any sort of substance. There's so many of them that just aren't up to the expectation of the previous games. One of my favorite parts of the previous games was just reading through the terminals at the locations, learning about the little inner office politics and just other goofy little things that are baked into every location. Fallout 4 seems really sterile in this regard. While there are some really cool quests and locations, honestly, there's a few that they did an awesome job with. There's an equal amount with nothing going on whatsoever. It's so disappointing going through some named marked location, and there's just one terminal in there with a regular shipping manifest. I'm gonna bring it back to another discussion that I was having with one of my friends in my living room. We were talking about that one quest with the robot pirates that are in a ship in the middle of Boston up in a skyscraper. It's just so cool. It was so unique, so zany. But imagine if just all of the quests and locations were like that. There's so many other wonderful parts of Fallout. They could have made this the best Fallout. They were like pretty close on a few things, but having so many AI generated quests, enemies, locations, and all of that stuff just sterilized it so much. It's just so soulless. I tried pretty hard in the prior parts of this video to not have any spoilers. I personally hate spoilers. The storylines, the quests, and everything are what make these games for me personally. So I wouldn't want to do that to any of you guys. So this is your official spoiler warning because we are going to be talking about the main quest line. And boys, what I'm about to say next is going to shock you entirely. No sentence of this magnitude has ever been spoken by another mortal man. I really hope that none of you think of me differently after this. I do not care at all about finding my old ass son. Let's do a quick plot synopsis. We sign up with the local vault. China nukes the hell out of us in 2077. Vault-Tec does Vault-Tec things, and we are cryogenically frozen. In the middle of our freezing, raiders come and take our son, kill my wife. Then we are frozen again. Very traumatic. We are then sent on an expansive quest to get our son back, all throughout Boston from these raiders. And lo and behold, we get the time messed up and our son is actually the main bad guy. In typical Fallout fashion, he's not actually a bad guy, he's just head of the faction which you're led to be aligned against. There's usually no real good or bad guys in Fallout, everything's just like kind of on a scale, except for Caesar's Legion, it's on site for those guys. I'm torn because I totally understand what they were going for with this plotline. If my real son in real life had gone missing, first things first, I would keep him the hell away from Boston, but also I would do whatever it takes to get him back from those raiders. But I'm sorry, Sean, you're not my real son and I'm not your real dad. This game did not compel me to care about his well-being whatsoever, and my character's constant whining about it honestly makes me sick. I've already covered this, but when Fallout 5 comes out and I'm 80 years old, I really hope that our character knows when to shut up. And I don't know, maybe I'm drinking too much haterade, but I just don't care about the storyline in Fallout 4 the same way that I did in Fallout 3 in New Vegas. I just think that like saving the capital wasteland and solving all the water issues and deciding the fate of New Vegas is just more compelling and more interesting to me personally. Okie dokie, that is the end of the bitch and moan session. Let's move on to the good stuff, but before that, let me recap real quick for you. First, and probably the biggest for me, is just the RNG adjective pipe gun nature of the entire game. You got the RNG enemies that drop the RNG weapons, and the legendary system, just don't even get me started. There's so many clips I had to edit out of this video. This one really gets me riled up. Number 2 is the boring ass quests, enemies, and locations. There's a bunch of great ones too, but there's just too many lame ones. And number 3, I do not care about my son. Now that I've thoroughly lost everybody who loved Fallout 4, it's time to get all the New Vegas fans mad at me as well. This one's gonna be heavily downvoted. I can just see it now. Anyways, when I was going around getting all the B-roll footage for this video and doing all of that, I realized one thing. I love Fallout 4. This game's great. I think it might have been a recent update, like a next-gen update or something. I was seeing some other videos pop up for that, but it just seems better now. I don't know, maybe I've grown as a person, but I don't think so. In Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3, this is the power armor experience. It's just another piece of armor that you equip from the items menu. It's incredibly good, super easy to use, and it's not really a thought whether to use it or not. You're just gonna take it everywhere with you. You also have to remove the armor whenever the NCR is near, otherwise they will attack you on sight thinking you are with the Brotherhood of Steel, which you do have to be in order to wear it. In Fallout 4, power armor turns you into a walking tank. Just look at how you get in and out of this thing. It becomes more of a vehicle than a piece of gear. At first, I absolutely hated it. It was tedious, cumbersome, I couldn't bring it everywhere, and I had no fusion cores to power it. After a while, I came to realize that I was wrong. This is the better version of the power armor. You really get to feel for the power part of the power armor. Not to mention, you just feel absolutely massive every time you run through a bunch of enemies. There's so many different variants and upgrades that you can make, which makes it so that the armor grows with you as you advance your account. My only complaint is that you can get it so early on that it makes that first encounter with the Deathclaw really lackluster. Fallout 4 is such a great looking game. For this video, I've been switching back and forth between New Vegas and 4 just to get clips, and I'm taking it back every time I switch back to 4. It's such a good looking game in comparison. I don't use any type of graphics mods. I play on some of the lowest settings possible, and it still looks fantastic. All the locations, even the ones that I said were boring in the last section, look really cool, and the ones that weren't boring are even cooler. I've never actually been to Boston, but if I were from there, I bet this is a really cool experience for you to see your city in the Fallout universe. I would absolutely kill to have Fallout 5 set in Chicago. I could see them doing this. It's mentioned a bunch throughout the series, and it would just be so cool to see the places that I personally know, but you know, all Fallout-ified. I did want to run through a few of my favorite locations. I already mentioned my number one like twice here, that big pirate ship up in the sky, but some close runner-ups are just the streets of Boston themselves. I love the style and the feel of the area, all the little houses along the harbor. I wish it was less populated by the RNG enemies so I could actually just like stroll by and enjoy them. Fenway Park, I love post-apocalyptic market cities. It closely reminds me of Megaton from Fallout 3, which was one of my favorite locations in all of the Fallouts put together. It's just something about all the junk cobbled together into some haphazard buildings. I love the vibe of it. And then this might be a little bit controversial, but the glowing sea, I think, is my favorite location in all of Fallout. It's super irradiated and stuff and kind of hard to hang out over there, but it's just so cool and well done. I love the radiation storms, the roaming death claws, and just all the buried locations out there. I wish there were more quests that you could take through it that would really take advantage of that area. While I do think a lot of the quests and the locations did have their problems, the ones that they did well, they did really well. One of the quests that I just kept on thinking about when I was planning this video was the Freedom Trail. You have to follow a bunch of clues around Boston. There's a little red brick road that guides you all throughout the city to all these historic locations, and in the end you realize that it's all just part of an elaborate initiation scheme into an underground group of people who are dedicated into saving runaway synths. I think this might be one of the best quests of the main game. I just really liked doing it. I didn't do this with a guide or anything like that, so it was really fun to just randomly uncover this. The Silver Shroud is another really goofy one that comes to mind. The Silver Shroud was a pre-war radio superhero. The quests kind of devolve into just playing the superhero and wiping out the bad guys. You listen to the Silver Shroud radio, and this one guy, Kent, will tell you where to go and who to kill. But this time, with goofy-ass dialogue to go along with it. Nick Valentine is probably my favorite character in Fallout 4. He's a great companion, and honestly, his whole quest line and his character are a work of art. I love the whole playing detective thing that you have to go find out what's going on, the dialogue, the storytelling. All of it is super well done with Nick Valentine. The Cabots are another really good Fallout storyline. Who doesn't love a deep, dark family secret locked away in the basement? These are one of my favorite types of Fallout storylines. There's a few of them in New Vegas. Everything about the town, the family, the house, whatever, looks super fine and normal on the surface until you start peeling away the layers and find out what's underneath. I could go on, and honestly, I have a bunch more written down, but I think that would make for a good video on its own. Why is the DLC always the best part of every Fallout game? The Mechanist was the first of the DLC that I played. I didn't even know that I was playing it. Officially, it's called Automatron. The Mechanist is the main antagonist of this additional storyline. The reason I didn't actually know that I was playing it was because I started playing Fallout 4 so late after it had come out. I had all the DLC installed from the get-go. All of a sudden, I was just fighting bands of robots. The rest of the quest involved teaming up with a robot named Ada to battle through a bunch of robot-themed battles locations, taking on new enemies like the Rust Devils. Eventually, you're going to end up in a long, drawn-out boss battle with the Mechanist herself. The battle was truly difficult. I did this super early on in my account's progression. It took me several attempts, and it has a ton of different mechanics that you really don't see too often in the Fallout 4 style battles where you're kind of just Ramboing through everything. It actually felt like a boss battle, which was new and great, and that led me to look up the questline, and that's the point when I realized I was playing a DLC and everything just made sense. That's why it was so good. This was the first part of Fallout 4 to me that really felt like a Fallout game. The storytelling, the jokes, the writing, the subtle dark humor, every part of it was super well done. Even now in game, I still use the Mechanist armor as like my main armor. It's really good, but also I like the way it looks. I'm a little robot boy. There is so much to say about Far Harbor. It's usually most people's favorite DLC, and for good reason. Most of the time, it's mine as well. Far Harbor is based off of Bar Harbor, a popular tourist destination in Maine, which strangely just popped up in my newsfeed for being overrun with tourists. I guess my phone must be listening to me and feeding me up stuff about it. Weird timing, nonetheless. You get to the town of Far Harbor on a quest in search of Kasumi Nakano, who has run off to join a colony of synths. She thinks she is a synth, but I think it's pretty clear that she is not. It's neither confirmed nor denied in the game, though. The townsfolk of Far Harbor are putting up with this radioactive fog that is enveloping the island. They are using some machinery called fog condensers to keep the fog away from them. It's radioactive, and it has turned the wildlife on the island into, well, it's Fallout-ified them for sure. The island is full of awesome locations and quests. I don't want to spoil too much, but the Children of Adam play a major part and are set up in an old nuclear submarine on the island, and they're basically in a standoff with the citizens of Far Harbor. There is a third group of synths in Acadia National Park, which also occupy the island. I'm not sure if the other two parties are super aware of their presence and control over the whole situation, but there's kind of like a weird little love triangle going on there, or lack of love triangle. You can choose to keep the peace between the parties, or you can side with the faction. I personally chose to keep the peace for this one. It's just what I thought was best for the island. The DLC itself is so big and immersive. It's so full of quests. There's so many different things going on. It could be its own game by itself. In the first part of this video, I talked about having every single location and something being cool associated with it, or it just being like more in-depth itself. Well, Far Harbor does that. Everything seems worth exploring, interesting, engaging, you name it. If I had to pick a favorite part, it might be the initiation sequence into getting in with the Children of Adam, but I think that the Great Hunt quest is my overall favorite part. I keep going back and forth whether I liked Far Harbor or Nuka World more. Far Harbor usually takes a W, but Nuka World is a close runner-up. If you can't guess by the name, Nuka World is a Nuka-Cola themed Disney World type of thing. After the Great War, several different bands of raiders took up in the park and lived together in some form of relative peace. There's several different parks, just like Disney World, all with their different vibes, themes, and charms. There is this long entry sequence with you taking out the guy who's currently leading all of these different bands of raiders, which in raider fashion, if you kill the biggest guy, that means that you're now the biggest guy and you run things. There's Nuka Town, USA. This is the central hub of the DLC, set in an old-timey downtown complete with cafe and arcade. You also get this swanky penthouse base complete with power armor station. A large portion of the main quest line basically leads you through all of the different parks in the Nuka World park universe, and you have to clear them out, and then you can assign them to a different band of raiders. First up, you got the Galactic Zone. This is my personal favorite. This one is space themed and of course sponsored by our favorite pre-war mega corporations. The whole area is teeming with Mr. House's Robco robots. Vault Tech has its own attraction, which serves as a vault advertisement and sales center. I love this region because there's so many different attractions here, and I think they did the best job on these ones. They're all super different. They're all unique and exciting to explore. The only downside is that exploring and walking around the area is constantly interrupted by fighting the robots. This is probably my biggest gripe with Fallout 4, is just that there's so many enemies everywhere. I can't enjoy anything. I'm just constantly in combat. There's Dry Rock Gulch, which is an old Western themed park. This is one of the smaller parks, and while it's cool in its own right, it's not overwhelmingly memorable for me. The Kitty Kingdom is medieval themed, and it's overrun with radiation and ghouls. There's actually like radiation sprayers all over the place. You'll find a lot more of the general carnival type thing here with Ferris wheels, a fun house, and other kiddie rides. There's a cool quest line though that you uncover with King Cole's castle. It seems like after the bombs fell, a lot of the employees shacked up here, and they were ghoulified, and they are still here running this section of the park. The Safari Adventure is of course an animal themed park. It's kind of like a giant zoo theme park thing. There's of course some giant mutated crocodiles or alligators and other beasts that you have to engage with, including a band of gorillas that you can team up with. The gorilla quests were really cool, but I do remember not liking this area very much because of all the mazes and maziness of the area tripping me up. And finally, there's the Nuka-Cola bottling plant, which is exactly what the name would imply, but it also comes with this cool boat ride type sequence, which takes you through all the different flavors of Nuka-Cola, which is a really well-made experience. All in all, the main quest here in Nuka World was pretty mid, but the areas that it takes you through and the areas you get to explore were really well done, and personally, the variance of them and how many different interesting locations there were really put this on par with Far Harbor for me. So I do know that I dogged on this in the first section, and I do think that I have some legitimate complaints, but there are also parts of the building, crafting, customization that I did really enjoy. Over the month of filming this video, I've actually come to really like this part of the game and don't fully agree with myself in the first section on everything that I was saying. The older versions of Fallout, like New Vegas, did have some crafting elements, but they kind of sucked, and I did avoid them almost entirely. Fallout 4 settlement building system is awesome when engaged in correctly. I'm really enjoying building up my house, storing all my bobbleheads and magazines and stuff like that. As a collector of in-game items, it's kind of cool. In the future, I do look forward to fully immersing myself into this part of the game, but only for one settlement. I don't have any desire to build up a bunch of them, and I'm completely done helping Preston work on more of these settlements. Man can do it himself. I want to leave you guys with my final thoughts and answer the question of why did Fallout 4 fall flat? I think it's pretty clear. It just missed expectations for people. If this game didn't have any other games before it, the rating would have been fine. People would have thought it was a pretty cool video game, but because Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, and probably 1 and 2, I haven't played them yet, were so good, you know, people kind of felt a little bit let down by the initial release of this game. I do, however, think that this game now in its patched form with all the DLCs and everything else is a much better game than when it was initially released. The RNG weapons that come with this game. The random adjective pipe gun nature of the weapons and enemies is just super lame. I don't like how there's constant barrages of these enemies that don't allow me to really take in the areas that they spend so much time developing and making in the game. Don't love that. The legendary system in general is an abomination. That kind of just rolls into the two previous points that I made there. They should just scrap that. A lot of the locations that they did made, while very cool looking, are soulless, along with the RNG quests that you do get. They're pretty soulless. Preston Garvey can suck it. I do think that the good parts about Fallout 4 greatly outweigh the bad parts. The game is super good looking. The locations that are soulless are at least nice to look at, and the stuff that they didn't make soulless is really good. The quests are super tight, the really good ones, especially some of the ones that I mentioned before there. The power armor is so much cooler than in the prior games. You just feel like an absolute walking tank, and it's definitely more of a vehicle. The customization aspect in Fallout 4 is way better than the prior games, and the building for the settlements and the customization and modding for the weapons and armor is really cool. And just like all of the Fallouts before this one, the DLC absolutely knocks it out of the park. All in all, I really enjoyed Fallout 4. I'm not really sure what I would rate it at this point, but much higher than that 68% that we looked at in the beginning of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more similar-ish type of content, and I will see you in the next video.